I just ask you another thing? I've just received notification of another area of exports to China has had sanctions removed, that Aussie hay exports are going to resume. So that's Aussie hay exports. This follows, obviously, the relaxing across a number of other sectors. You'd welcome that development this afternoon, that news that we've just got to hand?
Oh, well, of course I would. But that is also why, when you look at the work that the former coalition government did in actually opening up new trading opportunities for Australia, in particular, so we did not have all of our eggs in one basket. And in particular, COVID highlighted that. I mean, we signed free trade agreement after free trade agreement after free trade agreement. And why did we do that? So our exporters could have those additional opportunities. We obviously had a position in relation to China, and in particular, you know, the former Prime Minister Scott Morrison made it very, very clear we would never compromise our principles when it came to China. Certain decisions were then made. But of course, I would welcome the decision to reduce those trade barriers. Of course I do.
So, yep, another step in the right direction when it comes to stabilising that relationship. Let's turn closer to home. We saw the McGowan departure in WA. Huge boots to fill for Premier Cook, a big profile. Now Daniel Andrews gone, Jacinta Allen having that task. But those COVID-era premiers gradually departing. In terms of Victoria, does it mean that the Liberals should be back in the game? And is there any federal ramification? Are there any federal implications from the departure of a figure like Daniel Andrews?
It's a really good question, because when I look at Daniel Andrews did incredibly well out of Victoria. Did Victorians do well out of Daniel Andrews? I would argue the answer to that would have to be no. In particular in relation to, Melbourne being the most locked down city in the world. Well, guess what? Daniel Andrews and Mark McGowan have got off scot-free in relation to Prime Minister Albanese's so-called COVID inquiry. I mean, you've actually got to be kidding me. Both McGowan and Andrews get to walk away from answering any questions in relation to how their states performed during COVID and why they made certain decisions. I have to say, just exposes Prime Minister Albanese as running a protection racket for his mates and nothing more. But I would also say I think Prime Minister Albanese runs a very similar government to Daniel Andrews. He certainly doesn't consult. Just talk to anybody in particular in the business community or the small business community. Everything they say just falls on deaf ears. He has one agenda, and that's implementing the union agenda. He likes to indulge in distraction. Well, that would be the voice. And he certainly doesn't seem to have any regard, Mr Albanese, for the cost of living crisis that Australians are going through. Very, very similar to Daniel Andrews. So Daniel Andrews did well out of Victoria, but I just don't think Victorians did well out of Daniel Andrews.
There's a review of the Privacy Act, and this is relevant to your responsibilities as Shadow Minister. The Attorney-General has suggested that exemptions for small business up to a turnover of $3 million a year might be removed in terms of privacy requirements. What are the implications of that?
Look at the reaction of small business today. I mean, they've literally said, how much more red tape can you wrap us in before we actually put our hands up and say, why would you want to be a small business under Anthony Albanese and Labor? In the digital age, do we want to ensure that a person's personal information is protected properly? Absolutely. But at the same time, do we want to impose what are complex regulatory environments and systems on small business? I would have to say, please work with small businesses, Mr Dreyfus, to understand the impact on them. Because, Kieran, one of the recommendations that the government has agreed to in principle is for every business to put in place a senior employee to take care of privacy. Well, Kieran, you tell me. Go down to your local cafe and ask them, how's that going to work for you? Go down to your local nail salon, ask them, how's that going to work for you? Go down to your local mechanic, how's that going to work for you? again, there is so much more to work through here, but I do really worry under this government, small business just does not seem to get a breather, and this is just another layer of potential, complex regulation that small businesses in Australia, they just can't function with.
Michaelia Cash, talk to you soon. Appreciate it.